City Talks with Reuben Abati.
Okay, if you are still listening to us, it's still City Talks with Reuben Abati on City 105.1 FM, and our guest is Ambassador Hassan Tukur. I already introduced him, and he's here with us right now. Ambassador Tukur, thank you for joining us, and thank you for your patience. I would like to ask you, what's your take on the rescue, the abduction first, and then the rescue of the Kankara boys who have just returned and who have been received by the Katsina State government and also the President of Nigeria? Why should our children be so vulnerable in the face of banditry and insurgency and terrorism?
Well, thank you, Reuben Abati, for having me. The abduction in the first instance is a very unfortunate incident. It has been occurring in this country for the past few years. The rescue is a very good development. At least our children are back home and the parents are happy. Now, a lot of things led to this crisis over the years. We had Chibok, we had Dapchi, and now we have Kankara incident. Where would it stop? What is it that we need to do as a nation to ensure that our children and the general populace is safe in this country? If you go back into history, Nigeria has been the backbone of security. Now we have reached a stage where a number of things went wrong from the government, from the populace, and from the general society. If you have a national crisis of this magnitude, terrorism, banditry, and kidnapping, the government first would have to mobilize every Nigerian to be on the same page to support the government and support the population to ensure that these things is eradicated. The mentality or the attitude in Nigeria generally is, if it is not in my area, I have no business with it. No, we had the Niger Delta crisis. The Northeast has been occupied for the past few years, and now we have it in the Northeast. It is creeping into the North Central. So something had to be done. And the fundamental thing that has to be done is that the government have to mobilize every Nigerian to be on the same page to fight this crisis, because they cannot do it alone. Now, the security agencies. The security agencies over the years, they have been overwhelmed and with the various problems. There are so many theaters of conflict in this country. Virtually almost every part of the country have one kind of crisis or the other, and they cannot cope. We have a limited number of police officers. We have limited number of armed forces, members of the armed forces. They cannot cope with a population of 200 million people and an area of almost 1 million square kilometers. They can't. Then you go into the equipments. Do they have the equipments to fight, to confront this banditry and this terrorism? No. Over the years, the equipments are not sufficient. Funds have been voted in, but still it's lacking. Do they have minesweepers? If the troops wants to go in and chase these bandits, no, they don't have. The equipment they have, some of them are derelict, some of them are not there, and these things has to be addressed. So if it is a question of funds or it is a question of lack of getting proper equipment, then the government would have to come in and do the needful. And the members of the armed forces would have to be very honest with us. What is it that they cannot do, so that the larger society will participate in this thing? You give intelligence, and the intelligence given by the intelligence agencies is not being utilized to tackle the problem. Then you come to the inter-service rivalry and things happening within the armed forces and Army, Navy, Air Force, police. There have to be a coordinated effort. I believe the coordination is lacking.
Your Excellency, I agree with you very much on the point that there is a lack of coordination. After all, the governor of Katsina State told us that 333 children were missing. Garuba Shehu, our brother and friend, disclosed that only 10 children were missing. And then when the children were rescued, we were told that 344 children were missing and had been rescued. Now, I mean, looking at it as a man who has been in government, what is the problem exactly? Is it the failure to share intelligence, or lack of synergy, or confusion among the various security agencies?
Honestly, Reuben, I think all the above is there. There is lack of coordination between the security. Time we know the national security issues. At the moment, I am afraid. I don't think that is the case. I stand to be corrected. I cannot remember the last time I saw the national security advisor meeting on a daily basis with the service chiefs. That used to happen. They meet, if they don't meet on daily basis, they meet on weekly basis to review these security issues. It's not happening. Now, those in government nowadays, it's always not good to rush to press with information. Rushing to press with information, you will misinform the society. Like the 10 people that Garbashev said were abducted, he rushed to press with inadequate information, and now it is not the correct information. So it is a repetition of the same thing. Now we have passed the stage of propaganda and making somebody look good or bad. We are in a national crisis. For God's sake, let the government and let every Nigerian realize that we are in a national crisis. And every Nigerian, whether you are in this X party or Y party, is not the issue. The issue is our country is going through serious national crisis that we have never had before. So that has to be addressed, and it has to be addressed by everybody. Every Nigerian has to feel that, yes, this is my battle, I have to fight it. In whatever form we are going to fight it. If you get intelligence information from the local fields, use it, share it, don't hold it. Give it to other services that will move it and use it. That is the problem. So I will call on the government to mobilize every Nigerian. Look, we have a national crisis, and that has to be addressed. For example, Reuben, this thing is being repeated. Chibok, Dapchi, now Kankara, and there is an ending, and it's becoming. We are being embarrassed as a nation. We feel so little in Nigeria, that used to be the giant of Africa in terms of security, and now we are being embarrassed every day. That has to stop. And the people that are responsible, everybody have to sit up, including the citizens. I did not give any exception, because when you have national crisis, everybody has to put in his best in order to contribute to addressing this problem. And if the army, they feel inadequate, they should be honest enough to say, okay, this is why our inadequacy is. How do we help? How do you help us? There are things we can do in a different ways to address these issues.
Ambassador Tukur, you were in government under the Jonathan administration. You were the principal private secretary to President Jonathan. And in 2014, the Chibok girls were abducted. And that was a big issue. This time around, President Buhari has been able to rescue 344 children, we're told, because he acted swiftly. What exactly happened in 2014? Do you think that President Jonathan dropped the ball and President Buhari now is looking good because within 6 days he's been able to rescue the boys? In 2014, it was the girls. Now it's the boys. And he says that, the abduction of those boys was designed to embarrass him. So are there people in this country who embarrass presidents by abducting innocent children or promoting insurgency and terrorism?
Reuben, the Chibok incident was the first incident in this country. The government then had no experience, were fighting the Boko Haram, and information filtering about the Chibok abduction. There were passing of buses between the Borno state government and the federal government. In the first instance, the federal government said, don't sit for this examination in Chibok. They should be moved to Maiduguri to sit for the examination. That was not done. So here, the passing of bus was then between the state government and the federal government. Now, the experience of these things was the first incident. You expect government to have problems in addressing that problem immediately, and that incident was carried out by Boko Haram, who were vicious and they were operating near Zambisa forest, Zambisa. Now, I am not giving excuses for the failure of rescuing the Chibok girls. They ought to have been rescued. They were not rescued, and they were some of them were released. Some of them are still under captive. It's an unfortunate incident. Now, on the issue whether there are people trying to embarrass presidents or sponsoring terrorism, terrorists across the globe, they don't just happen overnight. It's a systemic failure over the years. In this country, you have a lot of people, a lot of unemployment in the country. You have a lot of out-of-school children. You have a lot of graduates who are unemployed. For example, in this country, you have almost 750,000 graduating every year. They don't have jobs. So criminal elements across the globe, they normally cooperate among themselves. During the Jonathan administration, I went to Pakistan and Afghanistan to get Taliban to withdraw the people that they were helping the Boko Haram in Zambisa forest. I went there, I negotiated, I discussed with them, and they withdrew them. Now, so it's an international network. And once we don't address the sources of the problem, which is unemployment, poverty, and negligence, we will continue having people that will use these people to create problem for ourselves. So fundamentally, we have to fight the terrorists, we have to fight the banditry and address it. But we have to go back to the root causes of all these problems. If people are gainfully employed, if people have things to do, they won't go into banditry. Everybody wants to be comfortable. So there are a lot of systemic issues that has to be addressed in this country, which we, over the years, we are not addressing it. System of the education. We spoke about the Almajiri schools, the Almajiri problem. And political leaders or political office holders creating political thugs among them. You had Ekomok in Borno State, you have Sukasara in Bauchi State, you have Kalare in Gombe State. All this is proliferated by politicians. So that too has to be addressed. If you are a politician and you are known to be encouraging these kind of things, that has to be addressed. So there are a number of issues that we have to address, not somebody wanting to embarrass the president, but they are benefiting from it. Now the kidnapping is a business. It's a business, and there are people behind it. So the security agencies should be up and doing to crack the people behind this, behind the bandits, because the poor Fulani people in the bush, you talk to them, they said, well, we have our godfathers. We get 50,000, 100,000 naira out of 10 million of 15 million ransom. Who are the people behind them collecting the larger part of that ransom? That ought to be found by the security agency, and it's not difficult. Now, if you cannot do it physically, technology has advanced. There are drones that can pick these people. There are drones that can chase these people. So the government should sit down seriously and think, okay, what is it that who and where do we need to mobilize resources in order to address this problem? I think this is the basic thing. It's not about embarrassing the president. What do they get from embarrassing the president? It's still politicking. I am at loss as to the politicians now just stealing for 2023. What we should just do now is to address the national security issue, to ensure that our children are safe in their schools, to ensure that farmers will go to farm, to ensure that people that rear cattle can go and rear their cattle without even being harassed. People, motorists on highways can travel from point A to point B without being kidnapped or being afraid. So these are the issues we should address, not about politicking. Politicking in Nigeria, we tend to politic for 24/7 without doing the responsibility that you are elected to do. So this is the fundamental problem, Reuben. We ought to be serious. We ought to mobilize everybody to address this problem. It's becoming a national crisis, but we are becoming an international embarrassment, honestly. As a retired diplomat, I feel so little when I talk about these issues. People call me from abroad asking me, well, Hassan, what is happening in your country? For God's sake, we are capable. Nigeria is a capable country. We can do it. So let everybody be serious. They should stop politicking day in, day out, and talking about 2023 as if 2023 is just tomorrow. It's 2.5 years away. Let's address these security issues. It can be addressed. So this is the fundamental problem, Reuben.
Well, Ambassador Tukur, I get your point about what we need to do. But for many Nigerians, the urgent thing now is that these boys have been rescued, and Nigerians are saying the bigger question is, how do we make our schools safe for our children? Either in the north, or the northeast, the northwest, or in the south, or the middle belt. Because if you look at it critically, when there was the issue with the Chibok girls in 2014, and then later with the Dapchi girls, and now in 2020 with the Kankara boys, it's all about boarding school system. And in 2014, when you were principal private secretary to President Jonathan, one of the issues at that time was Safe School Initiative. How have we done with that Safe School Initiative? What should we do with it now? What should be the priority of government?
I think first now we have a crisis. There are, if you know the geography of Nigeria, there are areas that are bordering thick forests. We don't have enough manpower to monitor what is going on in these forests. And invariably, whenever these children are abducted, they are taken to these forests. All schools, all local government bordering these forests, for now, they should all be turned to day schools. They should close the borders. They should go there in the day and then go into the towns in the night. So you turn them into day schools. Now, going forward, you cannot stop this banditry or kidnapping as long as the major issue is not addressed. What is the major issue? International terrorism, banditry, and people profiting from it. Excuse me. So if people know that if you kidnap people, you are not going to get money, they will not do it. Or if you kidnap people, you are going to be eliminated by the security agencies. They are up and doing. They will not do it. So temporarily, you can say, okay, any area bordering forest, like in Katsina State, you have the Rugu Forest. All schools, this local government, the 8 local governments bordering the Rugu Forest, where this banditry is rife, they should consider turning those schools into day schools. In the northeast, you have the Zambisa Forest. Other areas, you have Tongo Forest. There are many forests. You have all the state governments should come and say, oh, look, all local governments bordering this area where you have these forests, the school should be day school. One. Then you go back and address the fundamental problem, which is terrorism and banditry. If we don't address it, there is little we can do. Then 2, the security forces, police and the armed forces, they are far, far, far inadequate. 370,000 police force for 200 million people. 10% of them are on sick leave or are old. They cannot be deployed. Another 10%, 20% are with VIP protection. Now, you don't have even 250,000 police people to deploy. You can't. So you have to recruit more police officers and more members of the armed forces and train them properly and give them equipment. The armed forces don't have enough APCs, they don't have minesweepers, they don't have a lot of things that is lacking. So government and the Nigerian society, everybody should be mobilized to contribute his own quota to addressing this problem. Otherwise, we don't have a country. And I can tell you, this country is a beautiful country. The people in this country are beautiful people and are patient people, very patient. So I think the society should not test the patience of Nigerians to the limit. We will have a problem. We will have a bigger problem. So as soon as it's better we address this problem. And about Save the School initiative, I think it has been abandoned. I don't know what is being done now. We started it, but now I don't know what is being done. So it should be revived and get everybody from the locality to the state government and federal government to see how that should be revived and then be reactivated.
Well, I'm Ambassador Tukur. Well, many Nigerians are saying that the rescue of the 344 school children is a major victory for President Buhari and a confirmation of the fact that he is the general. Do you feel the same way, or you align with Afenifere spokesperson and others who think that this is just a scam and that this has just been organized to show that the government is in charge, whereas there is nothing to it? What do you think?
Well, I'm not joining issues with what Afenifere said or people saying it's a victory for the president. No, it's a victory for the children and the parents of the children. In the first instance, for the past 6 years, if the needful had been done, then this abduction wouldn't have been have taken place in the first place. It's a sad incident. We should be celebrating that the children are free, not a victory for government. It's a victory for the parents of the children and the children, and a victory for Nigeria. It's not for it's not a scam, and I don't think anybody will scam to kidnap 300-400 children out of school just as a scam. It really took place, and they said they negotiated, and if you hear the Hausa audio going around, something would have happened. So I don't think so. I don't think it's just a scam to show the president up, or it's a problem. It's a reality, and it can happen tomorrow. So
Ambassador Tukur, the governor of Katsina State, insists that there was no ransom paid. Yeah, do you believe that? And do you think that truly there was no ransom? And do you support the idea of negotiating with bandits or terrorists?
Well, I don't know. They said no ransom was paid. I was not in the field, and I don't have any information as to whether ransom was paid or is not paid. That is not the issue. The negotiating with bandits, yes, you cannot negotiate with bandits. But if you have about 300 and something school children, their parents and this, if you have to negotiate with them to get freedom of these children, I think you have to. Everywhere you negotiate with criminals, even the developed world, the United States of America, Russia, all these developed world, they've been negotiating with the Taliban. They have been negotiating. So negotiations goes on openly or discreetly. So it's not a problem to negotiate with bandits, but you negotiate with the bandits and get the result. But after that, you now have to tackle the banditry. This is the point I'm making. The banditry and the causes of the banditry has to be tackled by the government and the society. This is what I'm saying.
Ambassador Tukur, in a few minutes, we'll throw the lines open so that the people who are listening to us, who are watching us from all over the world and also in Lagos and other parts of Nigeria can make their contributions. But I would like to ask you, before we throw the lines open, and I hope that our listeners and viewers are waiting to jump into the conversation and engage with Ambassador Hassan Tukur, a man who knows, a man who has been there. Well, Ambassador Tukur, I would like to ask you, what do you think are the root causes of this problem? The thing moved from the northeast, Boko Haram, terrorism, and then it moved to the northwest, banditry and all that. Is there a problem with regard to the failure of intelligence? Because we have all these intelligence agencies who are supposed to take preemptive, proactive actions, but they seem to be more busy engaging in rhetorics on social media.
Well, the cause of the problem, Reuben, I said, is systemic failure. We have a population that has ballooned from when you and myself are young, 50 million, 60 million to 200 million. And we have not put in place adequate policies and measures to cater for this population outburst in the country, either in terms of training, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of jobs creation, and in terms of creating businesses. We have not done so. So over the years, these have multiplied. And fundamentally in Nigeria today, you don't know who is a Nigerian, who is not a Nigerian. We have the National ID Card program, but we don't know how many people we have. People come in and out, and you don't account for them. So this is a fundamental problem. And as I told you, international terrorism, they fester, they cooperate among themselves. So this is the fundamental problem. Now in Northeast, you had the Boko Haram there. Now in Northwest, it's largely banditry and kidnapping and cross-border banditry. When I speak Fulfulde, I'm a Fulani man, but if you hear the Fulanis coming across, those that are coming across the border because of the ECOWAS protocol and this, if you speak the dialect, I can tell you the dialect they are speaking, they are not Nigerian Fulanis. They must have come from either Burkina Faso, Mali, as far as Guinea and other places. Now, if you look at the Sahel 5, the Sahel 5 is Mauritania, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Chad. these are crisis-prone areas from what happened in North Africa. Now, from Algeria, Libya down crisis, now it came into the Sahel 5, and then it has drifted into us. And it is, unless you address these problems, this is going to continue. First of all, we have to isolate this Sahel 5 and find a way of solving the problem so that they don't come down south, and they are increasing coming down south. So the crisis you have in the northwest is not only Nigerian bandits, this banditry from all over West Africa they are facing there. And when Gaddafi failed, you were in government, I was in government, we knew this was going to happen. When Gaddafi failed, we knew this was going to happen. So those powers that led to the elimination of Gaddafi, and they should also bear responsibility, and they should also come to the rescue, not of Nigeria. Nigeria may be able to address our problems, but the Sahel 5, as long as there is problem in the Sahel 5, free arms from Libya's armory, and it is going to continue. So we have to find a way of having a security architecture that will in the ECOWAS zone, and then addressing the Sahel 5 and beyond, so that we will address the problem. The UN is doing something about it. AU is talking about it. So I think it's high time we call a summit, international summit, to address this banditry and terrorism in North Africa, Sahel, and then coming to West Africa and coming down to Nigeria. If we are not able to address it in Nigeria, it will go into the other ECOWAS countries, and we may not have a sub-region.
Ambassador Tukur, before we go to our viewers and listeners who would also like to make comments and engage you, what is your take on the Buhari's administration's effort to rescue 344 abducted children of the government science secondary school in Kankara, Kankara, Katsina State, within 6 days, something that no other government before that administration has been able to do?
The effort is commendable, Reuben Abati.
Oh, just that? I thought you would make more comments.
No, it's commendable.
No, because you see that, President Buhari has been repeatedly criticized on the grounds that, well, he came into power as a big general, civil war hero who will solve the problem of security in Nigeria. And then he came in and he couldn't do it. But this week, he just put the trick out of the hat, and within 6 days, he's been able to rescue 344 children, although there is disputation over the exact number of the children. And he has done it. And there are people who are saying, well, when you were in government, principal advisor to President Jonathan, during Chibok, you could not do it. So what makes the difference? I'm sorry, I am putting you on the spot, but I think you need to address it.
I didn't hear the last bit. I didn't hear the last bit.
No, I say it looks like I'm putting you on the spot, but I think it's a subject you need to address.
No, I didn't get the gist of your question. I said on whether Buhari had done something. I said yes, their effort is commendable, but I still go back to the same thing. The key problems are still there; they are not addressed. And once we don't address, it's not just rescuing children today and tomorrow other people are abducted. That is what we should address. What has passed is history. The Chibok, Dapchi, Kankara now is history. What we need to do at the moment is, going forward, what is it that we do as a country? What will the government do as a government, and us as responsible citizens do to make sure that these things don't happen, to make sure that our children are safe, to make sure that everybody can sleep in his house, people are not kidnapped and raped, people are not prevented from going to their farms. So this is it. It's not the question of, yes, President Buhari's government or Katsina State governor, they have, the effort they have done to rescue the children is commendable. But beyond that, more effort should be done to ensure that this does not even happen. That is the problem.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ambassador Hassan Tukur. We would now like to engage persons who are listening, who are viewing. I'd like to acknowledge the participation on this program of Dr. Abiodun Adeniyi. And I can also see Aisha Tukur there on the screen. Alex, thank you very much for joining us. Bashiru Tukur, thank you for joining us. Dr. Fortune Fiberesima, the doctor, thank you for joining us. Saku Kasu of Law, yeah, that's Dr. Kaode Ajulo. Thank you for joining us. Adiza Tukur, Jide Fakorede, Kola Mohammed, Kola Wole, all of you, I can see you. Samuel Chukuka, I can see you on the screen right here from the studio. Thank you very much for joining us. So we throw the lines open now. And if you want to be part of this conversation, you can join us on 0700 1051 1051. Or you can leave comments on WhatsApp 090 64403. And on our social media accounts at City1051 on Zoom, Twitter, and Facebook. And we're right here. And our guest is Ambassador Hassan Tukur, veteran diplomat, Nigerian citizen, patriot, and he's been talking about Nigerian issues. We will still ask him questions about other issues, but you have your lead right now on City Talks with Reuben Abati. Hello.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Our guest is Ambassador Hassan Tukur.
Okay. My name is Ozibo Emmanuel. I'm calling from Overlay.
Please go ahead.
Okay. I think the president so far, a lot of people say it's commendable, but for me, I want to say that we are actually looking at the cause, the symptom. We are not looking at the root cause of the problem. For example, when someone is having headache, it's a sign that something is going wrong. If the security in Nigeria is so strong, we wouldn't even be having issues about this kidnapping in the first place. So my take is that the government should look at the security of our country. It's very bad. People infiltrating our country from different borders. Most of them, they don't check them. We don't even know how many. Our country does not have a proper immigration system that can checkmate those that are coming in and those that are going out, those that are citizens. So this is the issue. Our security system is very bad. So I'm not even impressed on what they've done. I can't say whether it's a scam or whatever. That's not the issue here. But we should look at the security of our country. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take another call before we go back to Ambassador Hassan Tukur. Who is on the line? Hello? Please state your name and your location, and then you can talk to Ambassador Hassan Tukur.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Harrison, and I'm calling from Ayobo here in Lagos. Hello?
Hello, we're with you. Please go ahead. Ambassador Tukur can hear you.
Okay, first, there appears to be a misrepresentation of facts on this issue. As regards the number of abductees and also on who the real abductors are. And we have seen the army counter the governor. We have also seen the Boko Haram, the video released by Shekau, countering also the information put forward by the government as well. And we have also seen available evidence countering also what the spokesperson to the president said, that it was sent at the initial that were kidnapped. So, but in all of these, for me, an abduction of this magnitude will be done mainly for two major reasons. Either the abductees are abducted for the purpose of conscription, to have them conscripted into the rebel group, the insurgent group, or for the purpose of negotiation, to negotiate for a ransom. That is always the two major reasons why you have an abduction of such magnitude. And here it appears that it is not for the purpose of conscription, because if it was for the purpose of conscription, those boys would have never been released in the first place. And if it was for negotiation, well, you and I will not expect the government to come out and let us know if anything was paid, as ransom. However, in all of this also, let me move to conclude by saying that the ambassador has made some very salient points which I just wish to quickly corroborate. You cannot downplay the influence of international terrorism on all of this. For example, you know that there's always some level of network among terror groups. For example, you see that the Taliban operating in Afghanistan have a close link with the U.S. prescribed Hezbollah operating in Lebanon. And so you have almost in all parts of the world, Al-Shabaab also operating in Somalia and some parts of Kenya, have some links also with ISIS operating in some parts of Iraq and some parts of Syria. So you cannot downplay the fact that there might be some level of partnership negotiation, and support from other terrorist groups in terms of logistic support. And also, we should also look at the area of terrorism financing. Yes, terrorism financing, because when you consider the sophisticated weapons that these individuals use, then it goes to it sticks to the fact that there's financing, there's support, financial support coming from some quarters. So the government should also seek to identify those areas, those channels from where financial support are actually coming in as well. And also look at, because of course there is what is called the theory of contagion. For example, if you have an issue in terms of insecurity happening in a country that is geographically contiguous to Nigeria, there is a tendency that Nigeria also will, be brought under the brutal heels of such, of such a problem, such challenge. So you see what is going on in Libya. Libya is a dumping ground for weapons. Russia is dumping weapons there. Turkey is dumping weapons there. Despite the UN, despite the resolution by the United Nations Security Council. So, and look at Libya is just bothering us, just bothering us on the northern part, northwest. So, given the porosity of our borders, you cannot rule out the fact that most of those ammunition, those arms that are being dumped in Libya are finding their way into Nigeria. So while we seek to address this issue conventionally, putting boots on the ground and combating the insurgents, we should also seek to make sure that we strengthen our borders. The surveillance of our borders should be strengthened, and also identify those channels through which financial support and assistance go to these terrorist groups.
Very much. Ambassador Tukur, you have a whole basket full of issues to deal with. Well, the first caller talked about root causes. And then this second caller raised very fundamental issues about terrorism financing, about Libya, and also about our borders that have just been recently reopened. If you can just address those issues. I see that there are a lot of people who want to ask you questions. There's Mustafa on...
I think you can raise your volume small, because I have to struggle to hear the speakers and you.
Okay.
But for the first speaker spoke about education and then security, that our security architecture is faulty, something has to be done with him. That we have to agree with him. The security architecture is faulty, and as I said earlier on, the population has ballooned and we are not educating our children. Even the Islamic education that some of us had when we were young, that instill morality, instill good behavior, and being a responsible child and being responsible is now not being done as it was used to be done. Now you have all sort of proliferation from the different Islamic groups in the north, and like they are competing among themselves. So it is lacking there. Education system is lacking. The primary school, there are many children out of school. Of course, we'll have this problem. Then added to this, the security architecture of this country, the armed forces we have, the police we have, is inadequate. The indoctrination they have has to be looked into again. And then when intelligence services give you information, it has to be acted swiftly. That is not being done. So I agree with the first caller that really the security issue, the way we handle our security issues here is faulty. In many countries, security is not only the responsibility of police and the armed forces, it's the responsibility of every citizen. But the citizens would have to be involved by the government. The government would have to have a mechanism, a way of involving every citizen from the local level to the federal level on security issues. So that has to be addressed, and that is purely the responsibility of the government to involve every citizen in the security of this country. Once we do that, because the bandits, they live among people. if the people volunteer that we don't want this bandit to live among us, will give information and compromise their own hideouts, these things will stop. But once they are not involved and they feel aloof, then we have this problem. Now, the second person that spoke, he spoke about two issues: financial support for the terrorism and the international network. The absence of these two, we wouldn't have this terrorism here, because when Al-Shabaab was kicked out of Somalia and then the ISIS out of Iraq and the Levantan, they decided that the place that they will have comfort is the Sahel and West Africa. So they choose these countries: Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Chad, and going down to Nigeria. So this is the area they want to move their headquarters. So we have to address it immediately. If we don't address it, they get a foothold in this north of our country, this Sahel zone, we are going to be in trouble. So what he said is correct. It's an international network. They collaborate. During the discussion I had with this Boko Haram, some of them told me that they used to pose them to go and operate in Somalia, to operate in Congo, and operate in other countries. Those that are Nigerians. And those that are not Nigerians, they are sent to Nigeria to come and commit havoc. Because you would be wondering, how can somebody go into a school like in Yobe State and massacre children like this? So it was from discussing with some of them that they send people that are not from those localities to commit this havoc. So that has to be addressed. The international angle has to be addressed, and it has to be addressed by the global community. The West African countries cannot do it alone. The Sahel countries cannot do it again. AU, ECOWAS, AU, and the United Nations, we have to find a way of a global network to address these issues. Otherwise, the whole world, the whole area will be in crisis. Now, financial support. Without the financial support, they cannot undertake this kind of terrorism on this scale. Now, the banking system, informal sectors, how do they raise this money? That is the responsibility of the intelligence agencies to unearth what is really happening. So these two is the responsibility of government and the intelligence agencies to see who are the people behind this. If there are countries behind it, we have to reach out to those countries to say stop it. If there are companies in other countries that are doing it, we have to reach out to them to say, no, we know this is happening, you have to stop it. When we are in government, we reach out to some of the countries that some of their companies had links with terrorism, and they were able to take actions. Pakistan assisted us greatly when I was in government to address some of these issues, because they had experience of this international terrorism. At the time, they had 120 different terrorist groups in their countries. For example, some of the bandits that spoke, I listened to them in Hausa and Fulfulde. They said there are 4 major bandit groups operating in the Northwest. So if he said there are 4 bandit groups operating, so we should find out who are these 4 and who are the people behind these 4, and then address it.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Hassan Tukur, I can see Matt Akenware joining us. I can see Dr. Kaode Ajulo, who is also right here now with us. He's been there before. I can see Lanre Babalola. I can see Adeyemi Adeogun, Kola Mohammed, Adiza Tukur. I think I introduced her earlier on. But all of them are with us in this conversation. But Mustafa, I saw you earlier on Zoom, and you said, I want to ask you a question. Mustafa, if you are still with us, what's your question or your comment for Ambassador Hassan Tukur? Mustafa? Well, okay. Maybe he left us, or he's probably still there. Do we have another caller on the line here in Lagos?
Hello, Doc.
Yes, please.
Yes, I have a question, sir.
Yes, Ambassador Tukur is listening to you.
Yes, sir. My name is Abiodun Adini. I teach at Bayes University, Abuja, sir. Ambassador, thank you very much for your very informed, very penetrating analysis of Nigeria's present condition with respect to foreign affairs and foreign relations. You know, and I particularly like your take, sir, on the problem with our population, you know, and the contradictions therein, and how it is partly responsible for some of the problems we are having now. Against that background, sir, Do you think that Nigeria can have an effective population policy, that can probably help us mitigate the problem where we're having an increasing population, and an income or resource level that is not commensurate with our increasing population? And I ask this because of the contradictions of our culture, of our religion, that sometimes make people to think that, well, I can have as many children as possible. The Almighty God or the Almighty God, Allah will provide. And at the end of the day, we have many of these children that people cannot take care of, and the problem becomes the responsibility of the state. And when individuals fail to take care of these children, they become bandits and some other things in the future. How do you really think government can intervene at the level of policy, so that they can be a workable population framework that can be helpful to the growth and development of our country, sir? And secondly, Your Excellency, we are having all kinds of security challenges in this country, and sometimes some of us begin to fear, really, if all that is happening is not negating the concept of nation building. Yeah, nation building is not the absence of conflict, but the management of conflict leading to consensus. But in our case, we seem to be beating a retreat. Your Excellency, I want you to help me find answers to this question. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, Mr. Abiodun. I cannot but agree with you 100%. The ballooning population of our country is responsible for most of the crises we are having, banditry, unemployment, and all this. Now, you said it's a question of culture and religion. Honestly, religion has nothing to do with it. It's just illiteracy and lack of education. For example, in Islam, you said you can marry 4 wives, but Islam tells you, it is in Arabic, there's a quotation. You are shepherd and you are responsible for your own flock. If you marry 4 wives, you have 10, 20 children, you are responsible for them. If you know you cannot be responsible for more than 1, 2, 3 children, so don't go and marry 2, 3 wives. So you are just shifting the blame that the religion said you can marry 4 wives. That is wrong. Islam does not encourage you to be irresponsible. Islam is a very responsible religion. Islam teaches you peace. In fact, the word Islam means peace. So if you go and marry 4 wives and you cannot take care of these your children, you don't blame religion. It has to be in your own responsibility. You are just irresponsible. And that the education system we had all along is not educating people enough to appreciate that people have to be responsible. For example, somebody will marry 4 wives. He will come and tell you, oh, my wife is going to deliver. I want you to give me money to go and buy ram for the naming ceremony. I mean, it's not acceptable. Your wife gave you 9 months notice. So it's not a question of culture or religion. It's the question of our education system. We have to go back to educate people properly to accept their own responsibility. Everybody will want to have 4 wives, but I want to have 4 wives, but I can't have because I cannot have many children that I cannot take care of. So everybody has to take care of this. And if you go to the villages now, you see children roaming. If I go to my village now, when I was growing up, we were not more than 20 children in the village. Today, there are more than 300, or even, I don't even know the number, 500 in a village of not more than 50 houses. So it's a fundamental problem. So government should come with a policy, population policy to address this. We just have to address it. We should not run away from it. They've been blackmailed by religious leaders or people in the church, and this is not the issue. The issue, we have a fundamental problem to address the population explosion. 1. 2, we also have to address the issue of cross-border crossing of population from across West Africa to come and stay with us. They can come, but we have to account for them. So the national ID card project has to be up and doing so that we know a number, so that we can plan. The lack of these statistics also does not allow for us to plan to address the population problem. So a population policy has to come in place. Now you talk about security. The security is not about there wouldn't be any security, but how we manage it. We cannot manage the security because the security is inadequate. We have inadequate number of police officers. We have inadequate number of armed forces in the country, and we have 200 million population in addition to visitors that are here. Then we have a land area of almost 923,000 square kilometers, and we have a maritime territory of almost 200 nautical miles, exclusive economic zone, and then even the extended continental shelf of Nigeria is almost 350 nautical miles. So we have to be up and doing to protect this area. We have to be up and doing to come up with policies that we can address the security issues. We don't do it, we are just beating about the bush. I entirely agree with you. It's not the absence of insecurity, but how we manage it. The management has not been very good for a while.
Well, Your Excellency, Ambassador Tukur, well, before we take the next caller, I see all the platforms here are beeping. I would like to ask you, since you talk about the borders, what are your thoughts on the Nigerian government's decision to reopen the land borders in the last few days?
Well, closing the borders in the first instance does not address any problem, Reuben. Under international convention laws and this, you close your borders. As countries are sovereign, they can close their borders, but you assess of what benefit is it. You sign protocol of ECOWAS, international conventions. You normally close your borders when you have a pandemic like this, COVID, or when you have a war. But we decided to close our borders because we said they are importing goods. It is not the borders. Is there a failure of the security agencies to police the borders that led to that? The customs are supposed to police the border so that goods that are not wanted will not come in, but they have not been doing it. So if you say you are closing the border because goods are being from third-party countries are entering the country, it does not address the problem. They will still find a way of coming because we have porous borders. We have almost 900 and something kilometers borders country. So opening the borders, I think, is a welcome development in terms of international diplomacy and international business, because some of the people among the borders, because I also come from a border community, there is no way you can divorce somebody in Abdallah State trading and crossing the border with Cameroon. Even when the border was closed, they were crossing. Or somebody from Katsina with Niger, somebody in Maiduguri with Chad. So there is this affinity and going. Small business make life, they survive on this little businesses here and there. So the responsibility is for that, the Department of Customs to be up and doing and shoulder their own responsibility in protecting the border and ensuring that illegal goods do not pass. So it's not the question of when you close border, they still find ways to have it. So it's a good development that the borders are open.
Okay, we'll take another caller on the line. And we'd like to continue to appreciate Kola Mohammed, Matt Akinobare, Dr. Kaode Ajulo, Yemi Adeogun, Lanre Babalola, and Samuel Chukwuka, who have joined us on Zoom. But, Director, let's take the next caller. Hello?
Yeah.
No, please tune down the volume of your radio and then state your name and location, and then you ask your question or you give your comment.
Okay, my name is Reuben. I'm driving, so that is why I got to call. So I have turned down the volume of the radio.
Go ahead.
Are you with me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, my name is Reuben. Calling from Ikeja. Yeah, concerning the children that were kidnapped, the Kankara boys and all that, I want to believe and I want to see that all the systems in Nigeria is not working. The security, the electricity, everything in Nigeria, the system is very, very bad. It's not working at all. Now, reason being that when our forefathers have been us in the time past, when the crowd would come and just struck the light or cut off the light of the pole, when there is no light. Yet they're still doing evil things now.
Hello, I'm sorry, there's too much interference from your end. We couldn't quite get clarity on what you were saying. We'll need to take another caller. Hello, please state your name, your location, and your comment or question for Ambassador Hassan Tukur.
Good afternoon, Dr. Abati. Good afternoon.
So no, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
I'm calling from Omar.
One of things when it comes to security issue, the issue in Nigeria was got it wrong. Every country I live around the world, they secure their citizens through emergency system. Every country I live in Europe, in America, everywhere they secure their country by emergency system. When you call emergency system, you are not calling the police. You are not calling firefighter. You are not calling ambulance. You are calling emergency system who is acting as a supervisor all over the security operatives in the country. And with the system in the emergency system can see all the security operatives in the country. So if I call, there are two types of calls. If I call and I'm talking to emergency operator, that is live call. If I call and I'm not saying anything, I just call and maybe I hang up. They know with the system at the emergency or something, it's telling them my exact location on Earth. Maybe I'm under the ocean on top of 10-story building, they know. Then they will deploy the police, they will deploy the firefighter and ambulance. They guide them there if they are missing their way to turn left, turn right. So we have a response issue. And nobody is talking about it. You mentioned about border opening, we have to secure whatever, and a national identity card. How can you be collecting data for identity card when there's no housing data? I was in Abuja. I went to where they were collecting whatever for identity card. I gave them for fake information, fake address, fake name, fake everything. So what you are doing, having when you are doing your voter card or whatever is garbage in, garbage out. That is why when in election you see Michael Tyson, you see Michael Jackson or whatever on your voter list. You cannot collect any identity. First thing you have to have is housing data. There must be housing data, there must be map in the country. So when I go in, I want to collect my identity, they can verify my address. And if any foreigner is entering the country, first, no landlord should be allowed to give anybody accommodation. First, you go and register with the authority. So when you get then you cannot take it to landlord to give you, so that the authority will know that you are in that place. So when you are talking about security, it's not a matter of changing service chief. We have to change the system. The system we have been running from 1960 is obsolete. Nobody is using it around the world.
Yeah, your point is very clear, sir. Your point is very clear. We'll take another caller before we go back to Ambassador Hassan Tukur. Is there another caller on the line? Okay. If not, at this moment, Ambassador Tukur, you had the gentleman talking about the failure of a response system, the need to change the system. What do you say to that?
Well, Reuben, I agree with him that the security system is faulty since 90. He did a lot of analysis, so I could not hear him clearly. From 1960 to today, the security architecture have not been changed, or we have not upgraded the way it is supposed to be. Now, if you remember during the Civil War, after the Civil War, we had 250,000 troops. They were reduced to about 100 or something during Obasanjo's time in 1999. So at the moment, I don't think we have that number to cover the country. Now, what has happened with the security agencies over the years, they are overwhelmed and overstretched with various theaters of operations. And I think they are now, the whole thing now have now been turned into what I call war economy. Those people fighting the war in the various theaters are benefiting from this confusion and this war economy. Then they find it very difficult to extricate themselves from it, and then to be responsible to their own assignments. So this over the years has generated that kind of thing. You find soldiers coming out to complain, to challenging the chief of army staff. I agree with it. It's not a question of changing the chief of service chief, changing service chiefs. The entire security architecture had to be looked into, and it has to be beefed up, both in terms of manpower and in terms of equipment. And I said, the citizens would have to be involved. Everybody would have to be involved at the moment, because The army alone or the armed forces alone cannot do it. They cannot do it because they have been doing the same thing for the past 5 years. We have not seen any result. So it have to be done. Now, there have been recent calls for outsourcing a certain part of war. Every country, the way there are problems, you don't expose your armed forces to certain kind of wars, because Nigerian army is used to fighting conventional wars. This is not a conventional war. It's a it's a guerrilla warfare. They are not specialists in fighting guerrilla warfare. So if you have to outsource it for those that specialize in fighting guerrilla warfare to come and smoke out these bandits and terrorists in all the place, we just have to do it, because it's not a failure on the armed forces, it's not a failure on the government, and it's not a failure on the country, because even the United States of America, many developers outsource some of these conflict where they don't want to expose their normal armed forces to this kind of conflict that is unending, because it has its own implication. As I said earlier on, it has turned into a war economy, which has its own side effects on the country.
Okay, we still have more callers on the line, but I can see Isaac O, who is with us on Zoom. I can see Tunji Buhari. Thank you for joining us. Captain Dada, thank you for staying with us. Kola Mohammed, thank you for staying with us. Lanre Babalola, Yemi Adeogun, and all of you out there in different parts of the world joining us. Dr. Fortune Fiberesima, I see you are still staying with us. And Matt Akinobare, thank you for staying with us. But Your Excellency, Ambassador Tukur, I would like to ask you, one of the issues that have come up in the course of these discussions about insurgency, banditry, and all of that was Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, talking about the reluctance of developed countries to support Nigeria. And I know that you were part of that process when Nigeria was talking to Israel, was talking to the United States, was talking to Russia. Now, what is this problem? Nigeria needs help, obviously, no matter what we've been able to achieve, at two levels, regional cooperation and also international cooperation. What's your assessment? Is it Nigeria doing something that is not right, that is making it difficult for us to get quality regional cooperation under the regional scheme for proliferation of small arms and weapons, and also for the battle against terrorism, and then internationally under the necessary platforms for fighting global terrorism? And what should we do to redress this situation?
Well, Reuben, yeah, Nigeria has not been getting the international cooperation and assistance we desire or we want. During our government, when we try to source arms from the Western world, deliberately they refuse. We had the same experience during the Nigerian Civil War. Now, I think they are under no obligation to sell their arms to us. They are under no obligation to help us. We should help ourselves. By now, at 60 years of independence, we should have been able to manufacture some of these arms here. We have not done it. It's not too late to start. Nobody will sell arms for you. Nobody. Countries like Pakistan, they have their F-17 fighter jets. Turkey, countries that are similar in background and similar in resources to us. So if we are waiting for the international community to come and assist us, they will not assist us for obvious reasons. I don't want to go into the details here. I had my experience. There are things that you don't just divulge just in public program like this. But the problem is us. We have to address it ourselves. For example, there is no reason why Nigeria should not be manufacturing APCs at this time of our independence. There is no reason why we should not be manufacturing some aircraft. So it's not late to start. But there are countries that are ready to assist us to get this hardware to fight, to prosecute this war. Locally in ECOWAS, we are the lead country. If we sit down with the ECOWAS countries, all of them, because security, if Nigeria's economy is down, their economy is down, because Nigeria's economy is almost 65-70% of the sub-regional economy. So it's in their interest to cooperate with us. They are ready to cooperate with us. It's for us to do the proper networking and get everybody on board. For example, we did that at the LCBC, lectured the countries around the lecture basin. We brought them to the table, and we've been cooperating. There are hiccups here and there, because some of them are complaining when you agree with Nigeria, we do our own part of the bit. And that is too part of the indiscipline that we have in our societies. So if you are given a responsibility as a government functionary or as an armed forces, if you agree on anything, you better do your own bit. Once you do that, then it inspires confidence and the cooperation will be there. So it's not the question of international community sabotaging this. They will not help you. You just have to help ourselves. And we are capable. We can do it. Nigeria is resilient. We can mobilize the resources and we have the manpower and capacity to do it. It's only we lack the organization and the political will to take the bull by the horn. That is what I think if you are expecting the international community to assist you. They can do cosmetic assistance, but fundamentally we have to do it ourselves.
Well, Ambassador Tukur, we are now beginning to round up. But very quickly, we have seen the Nigerian government has received the abducted Kankara boys. We were told 10 of them were missing. We were told 333 were missing. And eventually we were told 344 have been received. Well, they've been given a bath. They've been privileged with a change of clothes. And they've had the privilege also, additionally, of being presented to President Muhammadu Buhari. Beyond this, how can we make our schools safe? Because the schools need to be safe, and the students, the abducted, rescued children are saying many of them don't even want to go back to school. And I will recall that you were part of a safe school initiative during the Jonathan administration. What do we need to do moving forward, finding a solution?
Well, I said, for now, all those local governments bordering these forest areas, both in the northeast and the northwest, they should close the schools and let them be day schools for now. That will inspire confidence to the children to go and school and come back. Otherwise, if you don't do it, they will not go to school, and in the next few years, you will have problems because there are so many local governments in this bordering these forest areas, and they will be threatened and they'll be afraid. So that has to be done immediately. Locally, the local government and the state government should also be up and doing to see what local initiative they can take to build the securities around all these schools. Then governments and the intelligence agencies should sit down and come up with how do they now revamp and review the safe school initiative that has been there, and call on every citizen to contribute towards that direction and assist government to realize that objective. The parents will be willingly cooperate in doing that. Leaders in society, business community, and everybody will be able to contribute his own quota to us, ensuring that our children are safe. And if they are not safe and if they don't go to school, the problem in the next few years again will be worse than what it is. So it's in everybody's interest to see that safe school initiative is revived and reinvigorated so that we address it.
It is indeed in everybody's interest to make sure that Nigeria is safe and that Nigeria is united and that Nigeria continues on the path of progress and development. We want to thank you very much, Ambassador Hassan Tukur, for taking time out to discuss Nigerian issues with us on this program. We remain hopeful that all problems will be solved and this country will remain united and will continue to move forward to the pride of all Nigerians and the entire world. And we want to thank also our callers and those who reach us via Zoom, Twitter, and Facebook. Remember, the conversation does not end here. You can reach out to me, Reuben Abati, on my social media account at Abati1990, both on Instagram and Twitter, and City1051 on all social media platforms. For those of you who just tuned in late, no need to worry. You can visit our YouTube page, City1051, to watch the entire conversation with Ambassador Hassan Tukur in a couple of minutes, I believe. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Don't forget also to tune in next week at 12 o'clock for another exciting edition of City Talks. My name is Reuben Abati. The show was produced by Adedoja Allen, Abiodun Odunton, Ayodamola Oludara, Oluwaseun Adetutun, and Olanrewaju Elbama Unipede Jr. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you again next Saturday.
City Talks with Reuben Abati.